Hi and hello everybody. A very good afternoon to all of you. And once again, I invite you all to the classes on general psychology. And these days, we are going through the classes on the development of psychology, a historical perspective. And in the last two classes, we have seen some of the portion of that. History was divided into three parts: the early age of pre-scientific psychology, that is from the time of studies conducted on psychology. From there, it comes up to the middle of 19th century, up to 19th century. The second period is the modern age of scientific psychology. That comes from the second half of 19th century up to the contemporary period. And the third period is the recent trends in contemporary psychology. This is the way the history was divided. And in the previous class, we were dealing with the early age of pre-scientific psychology. There are some views, concepts, explanations, definitions, some schools of thought that have come up in that period. And in the last class, we were dealing with the modern age of scientific psychology. There were many schools, and among them, some of the schools were as displayed here. Schools of psychology in the modern age of scientific psychology. There were many schools. Among them, very important schools are these: structuralism, functionalism, behaviorism, gestalt psychology, psychoanalysis, individual psychology, and analytical psychology. These are some of the schools that come into under the period of modern age of scientific psychology. And in the last class, we have dealt with the first three. Because it is a very vast subject, we have divided into different parts. In the first part, that was in the last class, we dealt with the first three schools: structuralism, functionalism, and behaviorism. We have dealt with them. And in today's class, we are going to concentrate about gestalt psychology, psychoanalysis, and individual and analytical psychology. About these three schools we are going to deal with in this class. And here comes the fourth school, that is gestalt psychology. The proponent of this school is Max Wertheimer, 1882-1843 is age. He was one of the founders of this school. The others are Kofika, Wolfgang Kohler, and Kurt Lewin. These are the proponents of this school. And this school originated in Germany in the end of 19th century. Gestalt. What is the meaning of the word Gestalt? It is a German term, and the meaning in English is wholeness, a completeness. In other words, the meaning of the word Gestalt in English is a configuration or an organization, an organized whole, in contrast to the collection of parts. Gestalt psychology is Gestalt psychology is opposed to atomistic and molecular approach to the behavior. We see the term Gestalt is wholeness. In other words, an organized whole. In contrast to collection of the parts. And it gives more importance about perceiving in whole manner, wholesome, holistic manner. Gestalt is a theory that looks at human perception. Individual perception, perceives objects and patterns as a whole and totality rather than individual part. According to Gestaltists, an individual perceives a thing as a whole, not as a mere collection of its constituent parts or elements. To a Gestaltist, the meaning of sensation or perception is always related to the total situation. I simplify it and tell. Human being observes very many things. And according to Gestalt's observation, or in other words, perception is holistic, in wholeness, not in divided parts. It takes place. What it means? I give an example, through that I try to clarify it. I say, look at a tree. What we do? Looking at the tree as a whole, the concept of tree comes to our imagination, comes to our observation, but not its individual parts, constituent parts. Tree as such, the total tree we see, that is perception, in wholeness, in a holistic manner. In individual parts, though the tree is in itself full tree, there are trunk is there, branches are there, leaves are there. If it is a fruit bearing tree, fruits are there. All these are constituent parts of the tree. All these constitute a tree. These are the collections, all the collections of the parts make one whole. But there is a lot of difference. There is a slight difference between seeing holistic and seeing in parts. Here the main concern of Gestalt psychologists is observing the situation as a whole, in its totality, not in its collection of constituent parts. Yet I give another example. I just tell, look at the cycle. What comes to our mind and what falls into our observation? What falls into our observation, perception is the cycle, the concept of cycle falls into our observation, our eyes. Cycle as a whole. Other way about, the cycle is constituted by different parts. There are different parts that constituted the cycle. When we say look at the cycle, we do not look at different parts of the cycle, but the cycle as a whole. And that's the main concern, that's the main concept of Gestalt psychologists, by saying perception of a human being is holistic. Perception of whatever it is, a tree we perceive or we observe a tree or a person or an object, whatever, our observation is holistic, in its fullness, in its totality, not in its parts. That is the main concept of Gestalt psychologists. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. According to Gestaltists, problem solving is possible through perception and insight and understanding. In solving problem, I just give an example, that is, a problem is given to a student studying mathematics. The student is asked to face this problem, solve the problem. And he says, he gives the answer after some time. What plus 3 is equal to 8 is the problem. Now, the students, the children who are given this problem to find solution, they wait for a while. Just think a little, then they give answer. And in giving this answer, in solving this problem, the child employs not only the habit but also insight. What is habit and what is insight? As we saw, earlier, habit is a function of nervous system. Insight is, I just give example to make it to make clear what is insight. Here in this context, when the problem is given to the student to find the answer, and finally after getting the answer, the student says that I got it. I got it, the students tell. And that feeling of getting it is what is meant by insight according to Gestaltists. I got it after some thinking, etc. We say, the students say, this human experience of getting it is called insight according to Gestaltists. Finding out routes to the school, they give another example. I give an example for clarifying what is insight. The example is this. We remember our going to school. Some of us from rural areas, some of us are from village areas. Some years back. Now, when we were going to school, for many years we were going to the school, most probably the same route we had taken to go to the school. Now, after some years, when there were developments taken place in the village, because of those developments, it becomes difficult to find out what is what. Sometimes, after coming away from our village, maybe our parents, they got settled somewhere in the town. After few years, we go back to our village. By that time, the shape of our village changes. Sometimes it becomes to a small city-like. And because of these changes, in and around the village, also in and around the school, because of these changes, we find difficult to find out the route that we were using when we were children, when we were going to the school. The way we were going through to go to the school in the beginning days of our school age is not the same way now. Because of the lot of developments, the routes are changed, the structure is changed, the means of reaching the school changed. But we need to go. And in the process of finding out the route, there will be a lot of struggle because the routes are changed. Finally, after struggling a lot, we find out the way going to the school, to reach the school. Maybe there will be some landmarks. And because of that landmark, we remember, maybe this is the landmark. Let us say our schools were surrounded by many trees. Let us say one of the trees are remaining there. By seeing this tree, we remember, yes, near to that school, that tree, there is my school. Therefore, we find the route and go. And after going to the school, we say, yes, I got the route. That feeling of I got, that experience of I got is what is meant by insight according to Gestaltists. Now, we go to the another school. School is psychoanalysis. The very term says that we analyze the psychological condition, the personality of an individual, we analyze. That is what we are going to deal with in this school. The proponent of this school is Sigmund Freud. He is called father of modern psychology. And also, he is called the father of psychoanalysis. We see earlier, structuralism is there, functionalism is there, behaviorism is there, Gestalt psychology is there. Psychoanalysis proposed by Sigmund Freud is different from these four schools. And with the emergence of Sigmund Freud into the site of psychology, into the field of psychology, lot of improvement was there in the field of psychology, especially making psychology as a scientific one. And Sigmund Freud is hailing from Venice. He is a physician. psychoanalysis is quite contrary to the structuralism, functionalism, behaviorism, and Gestalt psychology in explaining human behavior. Our concern is giving explanation to the human behavior. Why an individual behaves this way? Why an individual behaves that way? We are giving an explanation. In giving explanation to the behavior, structuralism has got its own standpoint, functionalism has got its own viewpoint, behaviorism and as well as Gestalt psychology, they have their own contributions, they have their own viewpoints in giving the explanation about behavior. And here psychoanalysis also is trying to give explanation about human behavior, and this explanation is different from all other explanations. Sigmund Freud published a book. Name of the book is Interpretation of Dreams. Sigmund Freud published it in 1901, and he speaks of world of unconscious. As we see here on the board, he speaks of the world of unconscious. Mental life or personality mean one and same. And in our mental life, only 10% we are conscious of what is happening. 90% unconscious. There is more mental life than consciousness. Conscious part is only 10% and of the mental life. 90% of mental life begins human being is hidden and usually inaccessible. I simplify it. We can give explanation of our mental life, but this mental life we are conscious of only 10%. 90% of our psychological life, mental life is hidden. It is not accessible. It is not that realistic as 10% of conscious life is. Now, according to unconscious life, there are repressed material in the unconscious mind. What is repression and what is material? What is repressed material? What is repression and what is the material? And this repressed material is found in unconscious mind. This is hidden. This is suppressed. This is pushed down to the unconscious level, according to Sigmund Freud. What is repressed material? In our life, there are some experiences, unpleasant experiences, painful experiences, shameful experiences, and disappointed experiences of our life. There are so many experiences like that. And all those experiences are called repressed material. And that is pushed down to the unconscious level of the mind. And usually, we do not like anybody to touch our personal side of life. We don't feel comfortable when somebody troubles or when somebody touches our personal life material, especially the matters which we do not like to bring to the conscious level. We don't want to remember them. We don't want to deal with them. We don't want to tackle them. Such kind of experiences lead us to disappointment and painful experience. For that reason, we don't bring them to the conscious level, and they are present in the unconscious mind, and that material is called repressed material. In terms of, according to Sigmund Freud, the cause of behavior, he just concises everything and says that whatever is our behavior, and all this behavior is caused by two main causes are there. One is sex, other one is aggression. Aggression and sex, these two are the most important causes of all our behavior. Unconscious mind is responsible for the most of our behaviors. Structure of the mind, structure of the psyche, which is also called personality. Psychoanalysis, psychoanalytical method. These are the main contributions of Sigmund Freud in the field of psychology. Now, what is structure of psyche or personality according to Sigmund Freud? Our personality has got three elements. Our personality is composed of three constituent elements, and those three are one, id, ego, and superego. They form our personality. What is id, what is ego, and what is superego, and how they form our personality, how they influence our personality. According to Sigmund Freud, id is a pleasure-seeking principle. It is 100% unconscious. It looks for immediate gratification. I am not worried about what will be the result of my demands, but I want my needs to be met. That is the personality of id. It is not concerned of its aftermath. It is not concerned or is not worried about the results of the demands it makes. By all means, it wants to meet its demands, its needs. It looks for immediate gratification of any desire. That is the id, personality element of id. Coming to superego. Superego also is unconscious, 100% we can say, because it also doesn't take into consideration of what happens to others. It is more idealistic, giving ideals, giving an exemplary. The aim is to excel in everything, to be very moralistic, to be first in everything. That is the mind, that is about superego. This is one extreme, this is another extreme. This is of immediate gratification of the needs and desires and dreams, whatever it is. And here, aiming to go beyond and to get good name and to be very idealistic. There is ego. This works as a bridge between these two. Ego works as intermediary between id and superego. It questions, it is judgmental. It is judgmental. This is non-judgmental. This is more of moralistic. It is non-judgmental. Gratification is very important. What happens to others or me as the result of my demands is not concerned of id. But ego says, is it required to do now? Is it required to go for gratifying the need? Is it compulsory to meet this need? Can we wait? Can we postpone? Makes a judgment here. But here, this is more of moralistic. That is the personality, the structure of personality according to Sigmund Freud. Now, we go to the other one, psychoanalysis. We see there another contribution of Sigmund Freud to the field of psychology is psychoanalysis. He analyzes the psychology of an individual. Psychology or the personality, it is also called personality. Analysis is conducted upon the personality of an individual. And in this psychoanalysis, he speaks of three elements, three parts of the mind. It divides mind into three parts. One is conscious mind, other one is subconscious, and the third one is unconscious. Conscious mind he compares to an iceberg, lot of water, let us say, and an iceberg is there, only this much. What is seen outside is this part constitutes conscious mind. What is seen is conscious mind, that is only a little part of that. Now, subconscious mind. In the unconscious mind, all the present activities, all the present observation, all the present perceptions are present here in the top level of the mind, that is conscious mind, conscious of what is happening right now. That is coming to the subconscious mind. The second part of mind is called subconscious mind, and here this is a storage of all the experiences and all the memories and all the ideas. That is the subconscious mind is the storage of all that. This, just take a look on this subconscious mind, it is called, and some call as semi-conscious. Subconscious or semi-conscious, both are accepted, but most preferably this is the technical term which Sigmund Freud uses in dividing the mind. Coming to the unconscious mind, the third division in the mind according to Sigmund Freud, that is unconscious mind. We remember the world of unconsciousness, the world of unconscious, all that is present here is present the same. Unconscious mind or unconscious world consists or speaks of the same, very same points. As we see there, in the unconscious mind, there are so many experiences stored down, pushed down. Subconscious mind is storage. Unconscious mind is a place where we push down, where we suppress all our painful experiences, all unpleasant experiences, unwanted experiences, those experiences which we don't want to call them back to mind, all of them are present here. Fortunately or unfortunately, most of our behavior is caused by unconscious mind. Let us go through the real and technical terms used by Sigmund Freud about the unconscious mind. Impulses like fears, unexpected, unaccepted sexual desires, irrational wishes, immoral urges, selfish motives, shameful experiences, all these remain in the unconscious level. Man is unaware of the above facts, but they influence his behavior. Much of the material in the unconscious domain is repressed. Freud argued that unpleasant or painful ideas are repressed or pushed down into the unconscious mind, and they find expression in dreams as slip of tongues, mannerisms. Here, to simplify it, all our negative experiences are suppressed there, and the unconscious mind causes, most of the times it causes our conscious behavior. Sometimes we speak some vocabulary which is not so pleasant, but that is the expression, that is the feeling that is hidden in the subconscious, in the unconscious level of the mind. And sometimes we speak, we react to others in the way we supposed not to perform. That also because of the influence of the experiences that are repressed in unconscious mind. Sometimes we get some dreams these are also speak about the dreams also nothing but the repressed material that is in the mind that comes to the light. What we are thinking more about, sometimes the same thoughts, the same ideas will be coming in the form of dreams for us as we are sleeping. Some of the mannerisms are there. Some of the mannerisms that also speak about our conscious mind. This is the division of, this is the psychoanalysis concept according to Sigmund Freud, and this is how he divided the mind into three divisions. Now we go to psychoanalytical method. He speaks about the world of unconsciousness, unconscious world, and speaks about the structure of the personality. Now the second one is psychoanalysis. He speaks of the personality structure. The next one is psychoanalysis, analyzing the problem, analyzing the behavior. And now he is giving some method to get rid of our behaviors, to bring to the conscious level what is hidden in the unconscious level. The main concern of Freud here, as we see in the psychoanalytical method, is the repressed material that is in unconscious mind, he wants to bring to the conscious. And in the process of bringing to the conscious level, what is the method he employs? And that method is called psychoanalytical method. And in this psychoanalytical method, he proposes 3 steps. And these are the 3 steps. One is free association. The other one is dream analysis. And the third one is analysis of daily psychopathology. What is free association? As the patient is taken for treatment, free association we see one of the methods, one of the techniques of analytical method proposed by Sigmund Freud. Free association. What is the concept of free association? The patients brought for treatment, psychological treatment, they are allowed to speak as it comes. Whatever is in the mind, they can speak freely. There is no restriction. Free association is making repressed material available to consciousness. A patient in the psychoanalysis is asked to recline onto a couch and report anything that came into his mind on the basis of random associations, avoiding all censorship arising from the shame or guilt. Here, the patient is asked to speak as it comes. Nothing to keep in mind. A feeling of shame, feeling of shy, feeling of regret, whatever may be the feeling, that is not taken into consideration, but the patient is asked to allow to speak freely as it comes. Then we see, basing on the language that a patient speaks, we come to know what is hidden in the unconscious level of the mind. That is what is meant by free association according to Sigmund Freud. Dream analysis. The second technique in the psychoanalytical method is dream analysis. We get daily very many dreams. Some of the dreams come to us that they speak of what is hidden in our mind. Not all the dreams, but some dreams. For example, certain times we are undergoing some tension, some fear, some worry, some heavy burden on us psychologically. We are taxed, and all these experiences will come in the form of the dreams when we are asleep. And those dreams tell us what is hidden in us. What is hidden in our unconscious mind is displayed, is coming to the mind in the dream analysis. According to Sigmund Freud, if we are able to analyze the dream of an individual, automatically we can understand what is the hidden in the unconscious unconscious level of the mind of an individual. And dreams bring the unconscious material to the conscious level. And here we see the another technique. The third technique is analysis of daily psychopathology. That is, observing our daily language. Repressed desires come out through slip of tongues, slip of pen, and forgotten names. Here, daily psychopathology. Psychopathology, automatically we understand it is unwanted, something negative. Psychopathology, abnormal, not normal. That is what is meant by psychoanalysis. Again, the same point Sigmund Freud repeats. In our daily conversation, certain times, some kind of vulgar language come from our mouth, slip of tongues we say. After saying something negative or bad or vulgar, we say, I'm sorry, it is a slip of tongue. This kind of slip of tongues and a slip of pens, or sometimes wantedly we forget some names, and all these are part of analysis of daily psychopathology according to Sigmund Freud. All these three techniques help us to bring to the conscious level what is hidden in the unconscious level of mind according to Sigmund. And that's the fifth school, psychoanalysis. The proponent of that is Sigmund Freud, and his contribution to the field of psychology we have seen. Now we go to the sixth school, that is individual and psychoanalytical psychology. The proponents are Alfred Adler, and he proposes individual psychology, and Carl Jung, his contribution is analytical psychology. I just bring to the notice of the students. Look at the spelling for Carl Jung. Spelling is J-U-N-G, but this J-U-N-G is pronounced as Jung. Therefore, the name is Carl Jung. Now, these two are the disciples of Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud was very glad to see that Alfred Adler, in his contributions, in his thought pattern, to be very similar to that of Sigmund Freud. Some considered, even Sigmund Freud felt that Alfred Adler is the first disciple of Sigmund Freud, but which Alfred Adler was not feeling. He was slightly different from Sigmund Freud. He has got his own way of looking at. For example, we see that Sigmund Freud was saying that the cause of behavior is sex and aggression according to Sigmund Freud. Biological, he gives more. But he just is different from that, slightly different from that. Some is like that in some areas. Alfred Adler is different from Sigmund Freud. It was a there were two systems, namely individual psychology established by Alfred Adler and analytical psychology established by Carl Jung. These two are worth mentioning together with the time of Sigmund Freud. In these systems, it was tried to provide a substitute in the form of some general urge in the place of sex, which is in their opinions as judged by overemphasis by Freud. Alfred Adler provided this substitute in terms of self-assertion, power-seeking motive, and laid emphasis on the individuality of the man by advocating the proposition of the life and lifestyle. Carl Jung, on the other hand, stressed the replacing of sex urge by the comprehensiveness of term of libido and life energy. Libido also is called life energy. Again, I repeat, Sigmund Freud was giving more emphasis upon sex and sex gratification and aggression. These two are the main reasons for the behavior. He was limiting everything to these two reasons. Whatever may be the behavior, these two, whatever may be the behavior is, the reason, the force, the motive behind this behavior is, in terms of Sigmund Freud, sex and aggression. But Alfred Adler and Carl Jung, they felt overemphasis is given on sexuality and aggression for explaining the behavior of the individuals in terms of Sigmund Freud. They felt it is overemphasis is given there. Therefore, they wanted to replace sex, the urge of sex, as the reason for behavior. And Alfred Adler proposes masculinity, masculine nature, manliness, the power, will to power, slightly different from that of Sigmund Freud. Also this, here comes Carl Jung. Carl Jung also differs from Sigmund Freud, and he replaces sex into libido. Libido also it is called life energy. Libido also it is called life energy. He replaces sex with libido, and here Alfred Adler replaces with masculinity. He gives more importance to will to power, the power consciousness. That is the mind of Alfred Adler. My dear students, with these points we conclude about the second division of the history of psychology. As we know, these days our classes are on the development of psychology, a historical perspective. History was divided into three parts. The early age of pre-scientific psychology, the first part, and the second part is the modern age of scientific psychology. About that we have seen in the last two classes. Here I just request all the students to make note of this point. The material that is given to you is only a gist of the real matter. I encourage, I suggest, I request the students to have more access to other books too. There are some books in the library. As I gave some references of the books in the beginning of the class, one is Introduction to Psychology by S.K. Mangal. Other one is Introduction to Psychology by Kuppu Swami. These are some of the books besides encyclopedia. Therefore, I request the students to have more access to the books. Do not limit yourself to the material that is given. That is only a gist of the classes that we are taking. The more you have access to the books, the more knowledge, the wider knowledge you will have. God bless you. Keep good. Once again, all of you, may you all keep good health. God bless you.